Good morning.
Good morning, Trevor.
You called on the Prime Minister to resign. He will say, I guess tomorrow, that he had no idea of the outcome of the vetting. This morning, his colleague Liz Kendall told us that he was a man of integrity. Why don't you believe him?
Well, I think on the vetting process, there's no doubt that he was using that as his main defence to justify a decision which many of us criticised, the decision to appoint Peter Mandelson. So the vetting issue was his main defence. So it was reasonable for us to expect that he had asked lots of questions about that vetting process, that he understood it. And it's now apparent that he hadn't asked those questions. And so I think for someone in his position to come to the House of Commons, talk to the British people and say there was no problem here because the vetting process was strong, but not having checked that, I'm afraid that is totally incompetent, if you can believe it. So we do have criticisms about it, but it's not just on vetting, to be honest, Trevor. The original decision that was taken, given he had these briefings we now see from the documents that have been released, that said Peter Mandelson had maintained a close relationship with the convicted paedophile and sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein after those convictions, should have made the Prime Minister say, no, we're not going ahead with this appointment. So on many levels, the Prime Minister showed catastrophic misjudgment, and that's why we have said he needs to go.
There are two different explanations being advanced. One is that the Prime Minister is incompetent. The other is that he is lying. In fact, three. One, that he's incompetent. One, that he's lying. The third, that he is both. Fool, knave, or both?
Well, I don't know. Let me give you a fourth reason, Trevor. The thing that I think Labour MPs should think about quite carefully now is their government has been a bit of a failure, frankly, on the economy, on so much. And it's in chaos in the way that Conservatives were in chaos and in perpetual crisis. And I don't think they can get out of that unless Keir Starmer moves aside. And if they don't, there's a real danger they're handing the keys to number 10 to Nigel Farage, who can benefit from this chaos. So I would really say to Labour MPs, who in many ways have the future of the Prime Minister in their hands, that they really now have to accept the Prime Minister is a big part of their own problem, and in the context of the threat that Nigel Farage poses to our democracy and to our country with his divisive Trump-like politics, I think the Labour Party has to realise they have to move on.
If I may say so, you swerved my question about the Prime Minister's character rather elegantly, so let me put it to you in another way. Let's say we're in 2010 type situation again, and you were asked to consider coalition with the Labour Party or possibly supporting the Labour Party after the next election. Would you support a Keir Starmer-led government?
Well, it's obvious from our position on this at this moment that we couldn't, because we're calling for his resignation. But coalitions are for another day, Trevor. I'm going back to your question. I wasn't trying to avoid your question about his character. I think he's a vast improvement on people like Boris Johnson, but that's a very low bar, isn't it? I think he came into office saying he was going to put all that chaos and crisis behind. There weren't going to be the sleaze and the scandals, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. He thought, yes, there'll be change from those awful Conservative years, but that has not happened. And the Mandelson crisis shows that beyond anything else. Everybody knew Peter Mandelson was a risky appointment, and we now know that the Prime Minister back in December knew it was beyond risky. It would have been a big mistake to appoint him, but he went ahead. And that's why I think Labour MPs will want him to go. He's shown a series of very poor political judgments, and I think he may well have misled the Commons.
OK, well, Prime Minister is going to talk tomorrow. Ollie Robbins will talk on Tuesday. You'll no doubt be listening to both very carefully. If you are not satisfied after all of that, that your questions have been answered, or that you think that the Prime Minister essentially has done something wrong or been guilty of serious misjudgment, what can you do about it? Are you ready to move a motion of no confidence?
Well, I think we need to look at that, absolutely. But there is something else that the Prime Minister did when he was Leader of the Opposition, which was refer the then Prime Minister Boris Johnson to the Privileges Committee. That's a special process which looks at whether a minister has broken the ministerial code and misled Parliament and lied to Parliament. Keir Starmer championed that approach against Boris Johnson. I think it's right that that approach is now applied to him. And that's what Liberal Democrats have been calling for. We hope we can get other parties behind us. Let's see what the Prime Minister says on Monday. At the moment, I can't see he can give any explanation for his very poor judgment. There might even be an emergency debate on Tuesday. I'd be expecting that ahead of Prime Minister's questions. And as a result of all that parliamentary pressure, if, as I suspect, we will not be satisfied by the answers we get, then I think a referral to the Privilege Committee is the next step.
All right, well, let's talk about really what should lie behind all of this, which is actual politics. You're campaigning for May the 7th, local elections, Scotland and Welsh Parliament elections. I've looked at your manifesto. Given that oil prices have been well above $100 a barrel, gas prices similarly elevated, no sign they're going to fall back to their previous levels. Do you regret promising on your party website to halve energy bills were you elected?
Not at all. We put that forward as a 10-year programme and we maintain that. You're right that oil and gas prices are at record levels and that's hurting the British economy. And the question is, what do you do about that? First of all, you clearly need to invest in renewables and we have led that in our country, a proud record of investing in a much cleaner and cheaper green energy. But more than that, we believe we need help for people now. So the Chancellor is getting in actually a windfall revenues from these higher oil and gas prices. That's hurting people, pensioners and families, it's hurting businesses, hurting our economy. And we think the Chancellor needs to act now. And we've put forward a package paid for by this windfall revenue to cut excise duty on petrol and diesel by 10p. That would deliver a price cut at the pumps of 12p a litre.
But that's not halving energy bills, is it?
No, well, I'm dealing with it at the moment. I'm happy to deal with the long-term issue, very happy. But here's a package for now. Not only would we want to see those petrol and diesel prices fall, we've suggested that the £3 cap on bus fares goes down to £1. Rail fares are cut by 10%. That would be a 3-month temporary emergency package to keep our economy moving against these huge threats from that have resulted from Trump's idiotic war.
Who's paying for all that, Mr. Davey? Who's paying for all that? Where's the money coming from?
Well, I did explain my answer, Trevor. There is a windfall coming to the Treasury from higher oil and gas prices in the form of the higher money from the energy profits levy, from the gas tax and from VAT on fuel duty.
That's a big storm that's going to deliver the cut in bus fares, the cut in energy bills, all of the other things that you're promising.
Let me take you through. Let me take you through the numbers. We put them in the public domain. They're very transparent. Essentially, the estimates from the city have suggested that the Chancellor is going to get in £8 billion a year should this continue for a year. So we've said, let's just do it in 3 months because we hope it's all over in 3 months. That's £2 billion extra to the Exchequer, and our package costs that same money. So we're recycling the windfall to make sure our economy keeps moving. And I worry if we don't, not only will people be hit in the pocket and businesses will be hit, but our economy will come to a grinding halt. And I'm really shocked, actually, that the Chancellor hasn't moved already. It seems obvious to me. Other countries are doing it, Trevor. Australia's doing it. Italy's doing it. Spain's doing it. Lots of states in the United States are doing it. They're taking action to protect people and protect the economy, but we're not doing it. And I'm really surprised, actually, that Conservatives and Reform haven't done anything like this. We're the only party arguing for this emergency package.
I must say, that all sounds absolutely terrific. But of course, you do know that the reason oil prices are at the height they are is largely because, and you've said it yourself, because of the action of one Donald Trump, who you think is a terrible thing and ought to be got rid of. So, do you want the windfall from Donald Trump's actions, or do you want to get rid of Donald Trump? You can't have both, can you?
Look, if Donald Trump hadn't waged his idiotic, reckless war in Iran, supported by Nigel Farage, his biggest cheerleader, then the prices wouldn't have gone up, would they, Trevor?
Yeah, but he's giving you your windfall, so you quite like him, really, don't you?
No, I think no one watching this programme will believe you, Trevor. They know that I've been the fiercest critic of Donald Trump in the country.
But you love
from
his
the get-go.
oil prices.
No, I don't. No, Trevor, come on, you know that's not true. What I'm saying is we wish the war hadn't happened. It's an idiotic war. And if it hadn't happened, there wouldn't be this windfall and there wouldn't be the need to cut the prices because they wouldn't have gone up in the first place. We have to react to the fact that this war has happened, the prices have gone up and people are suffering and the economy is suffering. And we've got a fully costed package, which is sensible, would help our economy. What I don't understand is why it's been left to us, the Tories absent, Reform are absent, and I'm afraid the Chancellor is absent too. We need people out there who are thinking about who they're going to vote for in the May elections, need to know there is a party who's on their side.
All right. Ed Davey, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you. Thank you.